Hello everyone. Settle in comfortably, because today we're tracing the footsteps of a giant of French comedy, whose life hides as many contrasts as his characters. Louis de Funès. That name instantly conjures his fiery gaze, his manic expressions, and that energy that shattered box office records in the 1960s and 70s. But behind the king of comedy lies a man whose childhood resembles a Spanish melodrama. Dive with me into Paris in 1914, where Louis Germain David de Funès de Galarza was born on July 31st. His parents, Carlos and Leonor, were exiled lovers. Originally from Seville and Galicia, they fled Spain in 1904 after a marriage forbidden by their families. Carlos, descended from Basque nobility, and Leonor, daughter of a wealthy bourgeois family, landed in Paris with a dream to rebuild their lives. But fate would play cruel tricks on them. In Spain, Carlos was a lawyer. In France, he became a diamond cutter, a respectable trade that initially brought some stability. But the aristocrat's pride drove him to wild schemes. Gold prospecting, risky investments, each failure deepened the family's debts. Until 1916, when Carlos, cornered, staged his own suicide. He left his shoes, hat, and a farewell note by a canal, then fled to South America. There, he found no fortune, only tuberculosis which claimed his life. Imagine Leonor, this proud woman, accustomed to Seville salons, now a widow with 3 children in a cramped Courbevoie apartment. She fought like a lioness to feed her family. As biographer Bertrand Courtois recounts, back then, there were no social safety nets. Leonor hounded shopkeepers, shouted, stamped her feet to get credit. Scenes that traumatized young Louis, ashamed to see his mother beg. Director Georges Lautner, who knew her, said, Funès' character is his mother. Her rages, her rolling eyes, her screams, it all comes from Leonor. And it's true. The shy child, marked by these public outbursts, transformed his humiliation into comedic material. At school, he already made classmates laugh to relieve stress. He mimicked his teachers, exaggerated everything. Courtois recounts. Humor was his shield against poverty. Yet at Paris Lycée Condorcet, Louis was a mediocre student. Struggling to focus, labeled average by his teachers. His dropping out wasn't rebellion. It was resignation. He didn't belong in a rigid system. His true talent simmered in the laughter he sparked, the grimaces that eased tensions. And here, the drama transforms into promise. Poverty, shame, his father's absence. These shadows forged a genius of laughter. But this is only the beginning. In upcoming videos, we'll explore how this fragile boy became French cinema's sacred monster. If you want to discover the rest, subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this video. Every click helps us bring you more fascinating stories. See you soon. Settle in comfortably, dear viewers, and take a deep breath. Today, we delve into the youth of a laughter giant, a man whose contorted face and explosive talent would light up French cinema. But before glory came struggles, doubts, and piano bars. Let's return to 1930s Paris. Louis de Funès, then a young man with no clear career path, drifted between odd jobs. Yet the art world called to him. He loved drawing and playing piano, passions that eased his family tensions. But how to earn a living? His answer lay in the smoky clubs of Pigalle. There he became a bar pianist, accompanying Parisian nights with jazz melodies. But Louis didn't just play. He performed. Grimaces, exaggerated expressions, theatrical winks. Between chords, he entertained staff and patrons. His first audience? A few laughing waiters and tipsy customers. Modest, yes, but this improvised stage became his laboratory. Here, his comedic genius sprouted, the alchemy of music and physicality that would define him. Loved ones affectionately nicknamed him Foufou, a nod to his exuberant spirit. Yet behind this laughing mask hid a sharp, polyglot mind. Louis spoke fluent French, Spanish, and English. The 1940s marked a turning point. Enrolling at the Simon Acting School, he studied for a year. Despite his unconventional looks, short stature, receding hairline, and academic struggles, his talent blazed. His gift for physical comedy and razor-sharp wit drew attention. There he met Daniel Jelen, a future star, whose friendship would later open doors. A year later, his theater dream abruptly ended. Expelled after an arson incident, Louis plunged back into hardship. His son Olivier later reflected on these dark years. "My father took on odd jobs after high school. Sometimes I wonder if he embellished his stories, because he never spoke of them at home." Pianist by night, extra by day, Louis cycled through uncredited film roles. During the occupation, his survival becomes a frantic race. Glazier, shoe shiner, even a floor scraper, but it's ultimately the piano that saves him once again. In the bars of occupied Paris, his fingers race across the keys while his mind is already simmering with the comedy that will spark millions of laughs. Captivated by this story? Like, share with your cinephile friends, and subscribe to discover the next chapter of Louis de Funès' tumultuous rise. Part 1, The Hook. Go ahead, get comfortable, because today's tale is about a giant of comedy who started from nothing, or almost nothing. Picture it. Paris under occupation, pianos creaking in smoky cafes, and a young man dreaming of stardom, unaware he'd become a legend. Ready to dive into Louis de Funès' tumultuous beginnings? Let's go. Part 2, The Story. In the 1940s, Louis roams Paris sidewalks with a secret. He can't read a score. But Eddie Barclay, a music producer who spots him, instantly notices. Louis, like me, couldn't decipher a note, but he had a golden ear, he'd later recall. The young man is a virtuoso pianist, captivating rooms on pure instinct. He plays in dingy bistros, like that cabaret near La Madeleine where he'd perform 12-hour sets. For a cup of coffee, filmmaker George Lautner remembers seeing him there. When he had the stage to himself, he'd leap onto the piano while singing, an explosive mix of humor and music that would become his trademark, long before Le Grand Restaurant. But bohemian life has its limits. In 1942, Louis decides to structure his talent by joining the Paris International Jazz Conservatory. There, a dual destiny awaits. On one hand, he meets future stars like Raymond Legrand and Robert Dussault. On the other, he falls under the spell of Jean Barthélemy, the director's secretary who would become his wife. Yet despite his passion for jazz, another idea itches at him: theater. At 28, he finally takes the leap. He enrolls at Cours Simon with a scene from Les Fourberies de Scapin, and it works, but his life pivots in the metro. One day, Daniel Jelen, whom he'd met at the conservatory, shouts from a train car, "Call me tomorrow. I've got a small role for you." This mentorship becomes a lifeline. During the occupation, danger lurks. In 1944, Louis narrowly escapes the STO, forced labor in Germany, thanks to a clever concierge who tells the Germans, he's already gone. Freed from this threat, he finally launches into film. In 1945, Jelen opens the door to La Tentation de Barbizon. His role? A cabaret doorman who delivers his first on-screen line. Well, he really got his comeuppance today. The tone is set, funny, sharp, but the road is long. 4 years, he churns through bit parts, sometimes playing 3 roles in one film, like in Du Guesclin, 1948. The 1950s are a marathon of hardships. He acts in Sacha Guitry's films, crosses paths with Jean Marais and Jean Moreau, yet remains invisible. To survive, he teaches piano by day, enchants clubs by night, and even joins the Branquignol's troupe. His son Olivier recalls, he'd rush from one concert to another, exhausted but determined. Then, in 1956, the breakthrough La Traversée de Paris. His role as Jambier, a cowardly yet hilarious shopkeeper, earns him glowing reviews. A year later, Explosion. Comme un cheveu sur la soupe catapults him to top billing. The Grand Prix of Comedy, titles like France's Funniest Actor, but success is fickle. He even returns to supporting roles until a 1959 theater play, Oscar, offers redemption. And there, triumph. Part 3, The Call to Action. See? Even legends started with coffee paid in music and metro doors slamming at the right moment. Want to know how Louis de Funès went from cabaret stages to Puig Puig? And why he became the king of grimaces? Like, subscribe, and share. The next part is coming. Yet, behind the scenes, Louis built another family. In 1943, he married Jean, with whom he had 2 sons, Patrick and Olivier. Their daily life? A modest little apartment, far from castles and glitter. In Don't Talk Too Much About Me, Children, the 2 brothers describe an authoritarian but present father. He was exasperating. He meddled in everything, recalls Patrick, a smile in his voice. Louis even closely monitored their schooling, encouraging Olivier to become an actor, seen in Fantomas Unleashed or The Mad Adventures of Rabbi Jacob. But Olivier, rebellious, ultimately chose the skies. Becoming an airline pilot, he turned his back on cinema despite political disagreements with his father, known for his conservative views. Jean, meanwhile, was far more than a wife. Advisor, negotiator, manager. She influenced his role choices, negotiated his fees, and even acted alongside him in We'll Go to Deauville, 1962. But behind the scenes, tensions simmered. During Don't Look Now, we're being shot at. Bourvil reportedly kept her at arm's length, insisting she stay in the background. And then there was another shadow, Louis's affair with Macha Berenguer, which lasted 13 years. A double life that exposed the man's contradictions. Voiceover, adored by the public, shy in private, hilarious on screen, serious off it. Jean-Jacques Gellat-Blanc, his biographer, sums it up. After filming, he preferred his garden to parties, his rosebushes to cocktails. A demeanor that drew criticism from his peers. But Louis didn't care. He tended his roses, avoided social gatherings, and retreated to his chateau in Clermont, far from the laughter he so effortlessly provoked. Voiceover, the 1970s marked a turning point. In 1971, Delusions of Grandeur was meant to reunite Louis and Bourvil, but the latter's death upended everything. Gérard Houry rewrote the script with Yves Montand, and despite their political opposition, the 2 actors collaborated brilliantly. Yet after filming, Louis declared, "I'll only work with Yves from now on," a bombshell statement masking a man exhausted. His return to theater with Oscar in 1971 confirmed it. The pressure was crushing. Success followed, but relentless improvisation and audience expectations wore him down. In 1973, The Mad Adventures of Rabbi Jacob triumphed at the box office, but its release during the Yom Kippur War created an explosive climate. Louis even received threats, forcing police protection. A cruel irony for a man whose on-screen laughter fought intolerance. And you, dear viewers, how do you react to these contradictions? Tell us in the comments. But first, remember to like, share this video, and subscribe so you won't miss the rest of the story. For Louis de Funès' journey is more than a success story. It's a life lesson, between shadow and light. But you know what they say, an actor's life isn't always smooth sailing. And for Louis de Funès, one of France's greatest comedy legends, this truth took a dramatic turn. Imagine. After a string of hits, the man who made millions roar with laughter suddenly found himself overtaken by his own body. During the 200th performance of one of his plays, everything changed. De Funès, usually electric, felt intense fatigue and spikes in blood pressure. Doctors warned of a heart attack risk. "This immense fatigue is a wake-up call," he admitted lucidly. In 1974, as he burned to star in The Crocodile, a bold satire on dictatorships, he made the unprecedented choice to withdraw. For the first time, the workaholic prioritized his health. A return to balance after decades of giving his all without restraint. But comedy is a powerful drug. Despite alarming cardiac warnings during Delusions of Grandeur, panicked insurance companies, fearing he'd default on contracts, subjected him to rigorous medical exams. The irony? A cardiologist declared him fit to perform, while slipping him a personal number for emergencies. Then came the worst. On March 21, 1975, in his Paris apartment, the actor's heart gave out. Rushed to Necker Hospital, he survived, but 9 days later, a second, more violent heart attack struck him down mid-conversation with his wife Jean. This time, doctors were clear. He must abandon stage and screen or face death. Against all odds, the hyperactive de Funès complied. When they told me to stop, I felt liberated. He confessed, citing the weight of box office pressures and expectations. Retiring to his Clermont chateau, he found unexpected peace gardening or walking. But the call of acting lingered. By 1975, he attended theater premieres, heart-heavy at not being on stage. His determination was unstoppable. He returned to filming for The Wing or The Thigh 1976, under strict rules. A slower pace, an on-set medical team, and measured energy. Gone were the days of hyperactive roles like Commissioner Cruchot in The Gendarme of St. Tropez. In The Scramble or The Gendarme and the Extraterrestrials, his performance grew subtler, almost melancholic. Yet the artist in him refused to fade. In 1980, he adapted Molière's The Miser, dreaming of merging classical theater with popular cinema. Despite mixed critical reception, the project symbolized his thirst for renewal. That same year, he received an honorary César for his lifetime achievement, a bittersweet accolade as his health faltered once more. His final films, such as The Gendarme and The Gendarmettes, 1982, betray a palpable weariness. Yet behind the camera, the tireless dreamer still prepares his comeback. In May 1982, he enthusiastically discusses reviving Oscar for the theater or adapting Daudet's novel The Bishop and the Old Lady. He even meets with Gérard Houry, his former collaborator, to relaunch Le Crocodile, the project that had once ignited his passion. Then come those final sparks. 3 weeks before his death on January 27, 1983, he attends the play Poppy Fête de la Resistance at the Theatre du Splendid. Producer Christian Fechner toys with the idea of giving him one last role alongside Coluche. A circle that would come full, a wink to The Wing or The Thigh. But fate had other plans. And you, dear viewers, did you know Louis de Funès had brushed so close to death before gifting us his greatest roles? If you'd like to discover the rest of his incredible story, don't hesitate to like, subscribe, and share this video. Your support keeps these tales alive. Here is the reworked version of the text. Imagine January 1983. Louis de Funès, despite his heart troubles, has just experienced an artistic rebirth by participating in a theater production. Director Reinhard Fechner, awestruck, recounts how the actor electrified the stage alongside young performers. In just 3 minutes, he crafted a hilariously improvised version of Marshal Ludwig von Rudel that brought the house down. But what struck most was his newfound energy. Fechner describes a man in radiant form, as if rejuvenated by the admiration of this new generation. Yet behind this vitality lay a cautious man. Did you know he'd requested a reduced role in the play? A precaution for his fragile heart. After the holidays, the de Funès family leaves for a mountain retreat. But the altitude betrays him. Short of breath, uneasy, he cuts the trip short and rushes back to his estate in Le Cellier. That evening of January 27th, he retires complaining of unusual fatigue. No one suspects it's his final night. Tragedy strikes in the dead of night. A sudden, massive heart attack. Rushed to Nantes University Hospital, the actor passes away on January 28th at 8:30 p.m. News spreads like wildfire. In the editorial offices of Le Parisien Libre and Presse Ocean, shock reigns. Journalists scramble to prepare special editions with his photo on the front page. It said the overwhelmed medical staff alerted the press before the official announcement. France mourns. Outside the actor's home in Loire-Atlantique, gendarmes stand guard to protect Jean de Funès and their children from onlookers and from admirers laying flowers. In Rennes, during a special broadcast, Michel Galabru delivers a heart-rending tribute. He was more than a brother to me, he shares, voice choked with emotion, recalling their legendary partnership and humor that crossed all borders. Official tributes pour in. Valéry Giscard d'Estaing, Jack Lang, the culture minister who prophesies that the greatest homage will be the millions of viewers who keep laughing with him. Even the Communist Party, rarely sympathetic to the bourgeoisie, offers condolences to the family. Then comes the final farewell. On January 30th, 1983, in the village of Saint-Romain-en-Galles, nearly 3,000 people gather outside St. Martin Church. A massive crowd overwhelms Le Cellier's small cemetery. Few showbiz stars, but sincere friends. Galabru, naturally, Jean Carmet, his producers, his lifelong comrades. Among them, hundreds of ordinary citizens from across France, including many uniformed gendarmes, a nod to his iconic police roles. His final resting place, facing his castle's garden, feels symbolic. For eternity, Louis de Funès remains the comedy prince who cultivated roses between film shoots. And if we look beyond the laughter, behind the iconic grimaces and gestures, we find a man of paradoxes. A tormented perfectionist who endured lean years, a fragile artist who transformed his wounds into creative fuel. And you, who's your favorite Louis de Funès? The mad gendarme of St. Tropez? Rabbi Jacob? Or the maitre d' of the Grande restaurant? Tell us in the comments which film still makes you cry with laughter today. If you enjoyed diving into the story of this French cinema giant, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. The notification bell will let you discover more tales of screen legends. Thanks for joining us, and see you soon for new adventures.